Take a moment and pause, because what you are about to hear may completely transform the way you understand love, heartbreak, and destiny. Imagine realizing that the person you believe could be your soulmate is sitting across from someone else right now. They are smiling. They are having a conversation. Maybe they are even creating a future that you once imagined building together with them. What would happen within you? Would you immediately see it as evidence that you have lost them forever? Or is it possible that what appears to be the ending is actually the beginning of a deeper chapter that you are simply not able to understand yet? Most people surrender emotionally at precisely this point. They assume another person's decision determines their worth. They begin telling themselves they were never enough, that they somehow missed their one opportunity, and that love has permanently moved beyond their reach. But what if those thoughts are simply illusions produced by fear? What if the real mistake is not that your soulmate is spending time with someone else, but that you are prepared to abandon yourself because of it? Today, we are going to explore the hidden psychological patterns that keep people trapped inside heartbreak. We will look at why temporary relationships can sometimes reveal some of life's deepest lessons, and why the person who walks away is not necessarily the person who ultimately wins. Before you surrender your hope, before you allow fear to decide how your story ends, stay with me until the very end. Because one powerful realization could completely change how you view your future, your heart, and the love you believe may be waiting for you. Many people experience intense emotional pain when they imagine that the person they feel is meant for them is spending time with someone else. The mind instantly rushes toward the most painful conclusion. It is finished. I missed my opportunity. They have selected someone else and will remain with them forever. Yet the human journey is almost never that straightforward. Life develops through experiences that gradually shape people rather than changing everything in a single moment. Every meaningful relationship, whether it survives for several weeks or continues for many years, leaves lessons behind that can influence decisions later in life. What seems like the closing of one possibility may actually be one part of a much larger process that neither person completely understands while they are living through it. One of the biggest misunderstandings about love is the idea that every relationship is supposed to continue forever. In reality, some relationships appear in our lives because they awaken something that had remained dormant within us. Someone might enter another relationship believing they have discovered everything they need, only to eventually realize that attraction by itself cannot produce emotional security, trust, or true understanding. Excitement can slowly disappear. Novelty can eventually fade. When those things become quieter, what remains is the reality of who two people truly are beneath the surface and beyond appearances. That realization can become one of life's most valuable teachers. Sometimes people are attracted towards someone who mirrors their present emotional condition instead of their deepest emotional requirements. If they feel insecure, they might choose familiarity instead of personal growth. If they are afraid of vulnerability, they may choose relationships that feel emotionally comfortable because those relationships never demand complete honesty. If they are searching for approval, they may mistake admiration or attention for genuine love. These choices do not automatically mean someone has failed. They often reflect the inner world a person is carrying at that particular stage of life. As people mature, their understanding of love can mature alongside them. At the same time, it is important not to create absolute certainty around the belief that someone is guaranteed to return, or that every temporary relationship secretly contains a promise that is waiting specifically for you. None of us can predict another person's future decisions with complete certainty. Believing someone is your soulmate does not provide proof of what that person will eventually choose. What that belief can offer, however, is an opportunity to examine your own emotional journey rather than becoming completely consumed by another person's present circumstances. While another person is experiencing their own life, your own life is continuing to move forward as well. Remaining emotionally frozen in one place can become just as restrictive as constantly chasing someone who is unavailable. Every day spent comparing yourself with another person or repeatedly wondering why they were selected instead of you is a day of your own life that has been surrendered to something you cannot control. The energy you spend on endless comparison can gradually weaken your confidence because your emotional well-being becomes dependent upon circumstances outside your influence. Many people also fail to recognize that two individuals can be changing independently of one another. Experiences shape values, expose blind spots, challenge unrealistic expectations, and sometimes bring emotional wounds to the surface that were previously hidden. Whether these experiences occur together or separately, they contribute to the people both individuals eventually become. This is why a relationship cannot be fully understood simply by looking at where someone stands today. Human beings are constantly changing through achievement, disappointment, hope, rejection, discovery, and loss. Instead of asking why someone else is currently meeting another person, a much more meaningful question is this: what is this moment asking you to discover about yourself? Are you becoming emotionally stronger? Are you learning how to value yourself without requiring continuous reassurance from another person's attention? Are you creating a life that still feels meaningful regardless of who enters it or who eventually leaves? These questions move your attention away from uncertainty and toward personal development. When you stop treating another person's current relationship as the final judgment on your future, you begin seeing your life with greater clarity. Love cannot be measured by timing alone, and another person's present path does not determine your worth. Every experience, whether it brings happiness or pain, carries the possibility of increasing self-awareness, developing emotional maturity, and preparing you for healthier relationships based upon mutual choice, trust, honesty, and genuine connection, rather than fear of losing something that was never completely within your control. There are certain moments in life when everything appears to move in the exact opposite direction of what your heart wants. You hope for closeness, yet distance seems to appear. You expect certainty, yet confusion takes its place. You imagine love arriving through a simple and direct path, but instead you encounter delays, misunderstandings, disappointments, or the painful realization that someone you deeply care about is moving in another direction. These experiences can feel completely meaningless while you are inside them, yet they often reveal parts of yourself that comfort and success rarely expose. Difficult seasons have a unique way of uncovering hidden emotional patterns that remain unnoticed when everything is working according to your expectations. Many people believe their greatest problem is another person's decision. In reality, the deeper challenge can exist within their own emotional world. A painful situation can function almost like a mirror. It reflects fears that may have been quietly shaping your thoughts and behaviors for many years. The fear of abandonment, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being replaced, or the fear that happiness always belongs to somebody else can become painfully obvious during periods of emotional difficulty. These fears may have existed long before the current relationship or situation ever appeared, but disappointment brings them into the light where they can no longer remain comfortably hidden. When someone you care about appears to be moving toward another person, the immediate response is often comparison. The mind starts producing one question after another. What do they have that I don't? Why wasn't I chosen? What is wrong with me? Why was someone else considered better? These questions may feel completely natural in the moment, but they rarely create peace because they are built upon the assumption that your value is determined by another person's preference. In reality, people make relationship choices for countless different reasons. Timing can influence decisions. Emotional readiness can influence decisions. Personal history, shared experiences, compatibility, values, circumstances, expectations, and individual priorities can all play a role. A person's decision to pursue one relationship rather than another is not a complete measurement of the value or worth of the person they did not choose. Emotional detours can also challenge unrealistic beliefs about love itself. Many people unconsciously expect love to eliminate every insecurity or heal every emotional wound they carry. Once that responsibility is placed entirely upon another person, disappointment becomes almost unavoidable because no relationship has the ability to permanently resolve every internal struggle. Healthy love can certainly offer support, encouragement, comfort, companionship, and emotional connection. But lasting emotional stability develops through self-awareness, resilience, boundaries, and self-respect. Without these qualities, even a relationship that appears happy from the outside can become burdened by constant fear, emotional dependence, insecurity, or an endless need for reassurance. Periods of waiting and uncertainty can therefore become opportunities to develop emotional strength rather than simply periods of suffering. Instead of filling every quiet moment by worrying about what another person is doing, you can begin asking yourself more useful and productive questions. What is this experience teaching me about the way I love? What fear is being activated inside me right now? Why does another person's choice feel like a judgment of my worth? What part of myself have I neglected while focusing so intensely on someone else's behavior? You can ask whether you are becoming the kind of person who feels secure within themselves, even when circumstances are uncertain. You can ask whether you are learning to release control over things that were never yours to control in the first place. You can ask whether you are building a life that contains purpose, friendships, goals, creativity, peace, and meaning beyond romantic validation. Because sometimes the most important transformation does not happen when another person finally returns. It happens when you stop needing their return in order to believe that your life still has value. That is a powerful shift. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you suddenly become cold. It means your love no longer requires you to abandon your own identity. If the person you believe is your soulmate is currently with someone else, you do not need to turn their situation into a competition. You do not need to prove that you are better. You do not need to monitor every move they make or search for hidden signs that confirm what you desperately want to believe. The healthiest response is to return your attention to yourself and allow reality to unfold without forcing it. Perhaps their current relationship will teach them something. Perhaps it will change their understanding of what they need. Perhaps it will last longer than you expect. Perhaps it will end sooner than you imagine. Perhaps your paths will cross again, or perhaps they will not. You cannot honestly know the answer today, but you can know something else with certainty. You still have control over the person you are becoming. Your worth does not disappear because someone else is receiving attention. Your future does not become meaningless because another person has chosen a different path. Your ability to experience love does not end because one relationship did not unfold according to your expectations. Sometimes, heartbreak forces you to discover that the love you were searching for outside yourself must first be accompanied by a deeper relationship with your own identity. You begin understanding that being chosen feels wonderful, but choosing yourself is essential. You begin realizing that waiting for someone else to validate your worth can keep you trapped in a life that never fully belongs to you. And perhaps this is the hidden lesson inside the situation you are experiencing right now. The story may not be asking you to chase harder. It may not be asking you to compete. It may not even be asking you to wait. It may simply be asking you to grow. Because the person you become while navigating uncertainty will matter regardless of what another person eventually decides. If they return, you will meet that moment with greater emotional maturity. If they do not return, you will still have built a stronger relationship with yourself. Either way, your growth will never be wasted. So before you decide that seeing someone you love with another person means you have lost everything, pause. Take a breath. Step away from the fear for a moment. Remember that you are seeing only one chapter, not the entire story. Life is much larger than the event happening in front of you right now. Do not allow another person's temporary decision to become a permanent definition of who you are. Do not turn their current relationship into evidence that you were not enough. And most importantly, do not abandon yourself simply because someone else has chosen a different direction. Sometimes what feels like rejection becomes redirection. Sometimes what feels like delay becomes preparation. And sometimes what feels like losing another person becomes the moment you finally find yourself again. Your responsibility is not to control the ending. Your responsibility is to live fully through the chapter you are in, learn what it is trying to teach you, and continue becoming someone whose peace does not depend upon another person's choice. The future cannot be known with certainty, but your present can still be lived with intention. Choose self-respect. Choose emotional growth. Choose clarity over obsession. Choose your own life while allowing other people the freedom to make their own decisions. And if love is meant to return, let it return through mutual choice, honesty, maturity, and genuine connection rather than fear, pressure, or desperation. Until then, do not put your life on hold. Keep moving, keep growing, keep becoming. Because the greatest love story you may be building right now is not simply the story of whether someone comes back to you. It is the story of who you become when you finally realize that your worth was never dependent upon them choosing you in the first place. What habits help me feel more confident? What dreams have I delayed while putting someone else first? Which emotional patterns keep repeating throughout my relationships? These questions redirect attention away from what cannot be controlled and toward meaningful personal development. With time, this inner work can transform not only the way someone experiences love, but also the kinds of relationships they decide to pursue. Another hidden purpose of emotional detours is that they teach patience. Modern life often encourages people to expect immediate outcomes, yet emotional maturity rarely develops overnight. Trust is created gradually. Wisdom grows through repeated experiences. Self-reliance becomes stronger through sincere reflection rather than quick answers. A delay in one part of life does not necessarily mean that life itself has stopped moving forward. Sometimes the most meaningful progress happens quietly, in places where confidence is being rebuilt, priorities are becoming clearer, and unhealthy emotional patterns are slowly losing their influence. Instead of seeing every disappointment as proof that life is working against you, you can begin to see it as an opportunity to understand yourself on a deeper level. Pain does not automatically produce wisdom, but it can create the opportunity for wisdom when you are willing to examine what it is revealing. Every unexpected turn has the possibility of uncovering greater emotional honesty, stronger self-worth, healthier boundaries, and a clearer understanding of the kind of love that encourages genuine growth instead of simply satisfying temporary emotional desires. When emotions become intense, many people experience an almost overwhelming urge to do something immediately. They send another message, make another phone call, check social media yet again, or endlessly search for signs that the other person still has feelings. It can feel as though taking action must be better than remaining still. Yet there is a significant difference between taking healthy action and reacting out of fear. Fear-driven behavior usually attempts to remove uncertainty as quickly as possible, while healthy action respects both your own dignity and the other person's freedom to make their own choices. This difference can determine whether love has enough room to develop or whether it becomes overwhelmed by pressure. Chasing someone often begins with a genuine desire to protect or preserve a connection, but slowly it can become a pattern in which your emotional well-being depends almost completely on another person's response. Every delayed reply begins to feel like rejection. Every conversation becomes a test designed to determine whether they still care. Instead of experiencing the relationship, you become caught in constant emotional observation. The connection no longer feels like two people freely choosing one another. It begins to resemble one person constantly trying to persuade the other person not to walk away. This creates emotional exhaustion for both individuals and moves attention away from genuine connection. Control can also appear in very subtle forms. It may not involve direct demands, threats, or ultimatums. Instead, it can look like trying to predict every decision, analyzing every word, or believing that if you simply say the perfect thing, the outcome will finally change. Thoughtful communication certainly matters, but there is no flawless sentence capable of guaranteeing another person's emotions, choices, or future decisions. Human relationships are shaped by countless influences, including personal history, emotional readiness, individual values, timing, circumstances, and personal growth. Accepting that uncertainty is part of life can be difficult, but it is also one of the strongest foundations of emotional maturity. Comparison is another habit that can quietly damage confidence. When you believe someone you care about may be interested in another person, your mind can naturally begin searching for differences. You compare appearance, achievements, success, personality, lifestyle, confidence, or social position. Before long, you begin measuring your own worth against another person's life. often while relying on incomplete or imagined information. This process is deeply unfair because you almost never know the complete reality of another person's relationship, private experiences, or personal struggles. Comparing your entire life with someone else's visible moments almost always creates distorted conclusions and unnecessary insecurity. Real confidence begins to grow when your identity is no longer dependent on being chosen by one particular person. This does not require pretending that you do not care, nor does it mean suppressing your emotions or acting as though nothing matters. It means understanding that your value existed before this relationship and will remain present regardless of what eventually happens. People with healthy self-worth approach relationships in a different way. They express affection honestly, communicate with respect, and remain open to love. But they do not abandon their identity or compromise their self-respect simply to keep someone in their life at any cost. They understand that love given freely has greater strength than love held together through fear. Patience also has an important place in healthy relationships. Sometimes creating space is not the same as giving up. It can actually be an expression of trust, because genuine feelings cannot be forced into existence through pressure. Constant pressure rarely produces lasting affection. Instead, it can prevent both people from seeing the relationship clearly because every interaction becomes filled with tension, expectation, and anxiety. Space allows emotions to calm down, perspectives to shift, and decisions to develop more naturally. Whether the relationship eventually continues or comes to an end, both individuals have a greater opportunity to respond from honesty rather than emotional panic. This does not mean becoming passive, distant, or unwilling to communicate. Healthy relationships require openness, vulnerability, communication, and genuine effort from both individuals. The important difference is the motivation behind those actions. Communication that comes from confidence seeks mutual understanding rather than control. Effort that comes from self-respect creates an invitation toward connection instead of demanding constant reassurance. Love grows best where both people have the freedom to choose rather than where fear repeatedly demands evidence. When you let go of the need to chase every answer, control every possible outcome, or compare yourself with everyone around you, you create room for a deeper sense of inner peace. Within that peace, your actions begin to come from clarity instead of anxiety. Your relationships can then be shaped by authenticity, mutual respect, emotional stability, and genuine connection, rather than by the exhausting pursuit of certainty. If someone you deeply care about is currently developing a relationship with another person, it can be very easy to assume that their story has already reached its final chapter. The heart often interprets another relationship as permanent evidence that you have been forgotten, replaced, or left behind. Yet human relationships are rarely as simple or predictable as they appear from the outside. Every meaningful connection can become a teacher, whether it lasts for many decades or only remains for a brief season of life. The experiences people share with others often reveal truths about themselves that they might never have discovered while living in isolation. Every conversation, disagreement, disappointment, moment of happiness, misunderstanding, and experience of closeness becomes part of an internal education that gradually shapes how someone understands love. A relationship might begin with excitement, attraction, curiosity, and hope. But as time passes, deeper parts of both individuals slowly become visible. Habits emerge, expectations are challenged, emotional patterns that remained hidden during the early stages begin to surface. Some people eventually realize that they have been avoiding honest communication. Others discover that they are more afraid of vulnerability than they originally believed. Some recognize that they have been searching for validation instead of looking for genuine companionship. These realizations do not necessarily mean that a relationship has completely failed. In many situations, they mean that life is revealing parts of the personality that still require attention, understanding, and growth. Sometimes people enter relationships convinced that they already know exactly what they need, only to discover that their expectations were influenced more by fantasy than by reality. They may initially be attracted to confidence, but later realize that kindness matters more to them. They may spend years seeking excitement and eventually discover that emotional safety creates a much deeper sense of fulfillment. They may become focused on external qualities while overlooking the importance of trust, patience, emotional availability, and mutual respect. These lessons cannot always be learned simply by listening to someone else's advice. Certain realizations become meaningful only after they have been personally experienced. A person can understand an idea intellectually for years and still fail to truly feel its importance until life places them inside an experience that makes the lesson impossible to ignore. This is one reason emotional growth often takes time. Experience gives depth to knowledge. It is also important to remember that another person's current relationship cannot be accurately judged from the outside. Social media posts, public appearances, photographs, short conversations, or brief observations rarely reveal the complete emotional reality existing between two people. Every relationship contains private conversations, hidden struggles, unresolved misunderstandings, quiet moments of tenderness, personal fears, and periods of growth that remain completely invisible to everyone watching from the outside.